everybody. Hello, my name's Rosie. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Hope you're all okay. So today we're going to do some fun painting, abstract painting, if you will. If you've seen any of my sessions before, you'll know that I do lots of crafty things, and I try to do things that are as simple as possible, that I feel are accessible to any human, really, that anybody can do it and anyone can make it look wonderful. And I thought that so far I've not really used much paint. I've done quite a lot of like papery collagey things with pens. So I thought it'd be nice to get some paints out and get a bit messy. And the reason I want to do this is that I want to show people that you, even if you're not a painter or not an artist, that you're still able to use paint. And it's not scary at all. And you can make it look beautiful even when you're just making a big old mess. You don't need to have any skill whatsoever. It's just about having fun and experimenting with textures and shapes. And I guess we would call it mark making. So mark making is a really nice way of saying we're going to just make something look beautiful, and you don't need to have any skill at all. So I'll start off by just showing you the sort of thing we're going to do today. There's a few different options, but essentially we're just going to throw a load of paint at some paper in a spectacular fashion, and there's loads of different ways that you can use it when you're finished. But yeah, we're just going to splodge paint everywhere, really. So the reason that I started doing this is because I've just sort of a bit of backstory, just so you know where we're going. I started out as an illustrator. Oh, thank you, Isabel. I'm so glad you liked my last session. I'm glad. I hope you've all watched all of my sessions. I've got loads and loads, but this one will be a bit different today. So I started out as a sign writer. So I did a lot of calligraphy, and I have taught calligraphy on here. So if you ever want to go back and look at the craft sessions that I've done, I have done calligraphy. And then I went into illustration, and a lot of the work that I do now is digital. So a lot of the stuff I do is on an iPad drawn, and then it's printed. I also do a lot of screen printing, so I will draw something digitally and then screen print it onto like a t-shirt or a bag. And I think what I realised is that I'd missed getting my hands dirty and using actual products and stuff. So that's why I tried this out, and I just did it one afternoon when I had a spare moment without the children in the way to make a mess. And actually what I found is that it's really effective, and what you're doing is creating original art. Now we can mass produce it by, as you might be able to see here, that on this picture here, I've done a quote on it. So I'll tell you a bit more about that later. But essentially, you can create the background art very quickly and very easily. You can use it for loads of different things. But then if you so wish, you want to do something that's got the same thing on top of it, I'll show you how you could do a quote as well. And then you could put that onto loads and loads of versions of the painting that you've done and make your fortune if you want. Who knows? So essentially today we're going to create this beautiful background. Now, as you can see, there's loads of colours, there's loads of random shapes going on, there's lots of stuff happening, but I promise you it is the easiest thing in the world. It's super easy. So I'm going to teach you how to create this lovely background. I've got this one here as well. So it's just lots of colour and lots of shape and lots of layering. Now this one is the black writing and the images is a lino print. So if you don't know what a lino print is, I'm perhaps going to show you in a future session. I've been thinking about this, and I think lino print would be a good one to do. So keep tabs on me, because we might do some lino printing. But it's the background that we're paying attention to. So we're going to make some lovely colours and shapes. The other great thing about this is you don't need a paintbrush. You don't need paintbrushes. You just need paint, basically. You could do it with your bare hands if you wanted, but I've got a better way. So what we'll do is we're going to create some lovely backgrounds, and then after that I will show you how you might want to go about doing a lovely quote on top of it. It does require a craft knife, so if you don't fancy using one of those, then you could always just write on top of it with a pen if you wanted. So I'm going to move these out of the way, my example pieces. So today I've got an actual easel sort of put together. I've done this so that I don't have to kind of put my camera in a weird place and you not see very well, I thought it'd be quite nice up here so you can see a little bit like I'm an actual artist, like a Bob Ross. I can't speak as calmly as Bob Ross because I've got 2 young children, so I'm always very stressed out. But the reason I'm telling you about this easel is because you don't have to have an easel. Please don't feel like you have to have this fancy setup where you're doing it on a board. I usually do this on the floor, either out in my lounge, or sometimes I'll just do it outside on the patio if it's a nice day. So it doesn't matter if I make a mess. So you can do this wherever you want, but just be prepared to get messy hands. So your the main thing that you need, in fact, probably the only thing that you need if you want to have a go at this today, is an old card. So we're talking old credit cards, not ones that you actually need to use. Please don't use ones that are in use. I've got, so this is like an old Boots gift card. This is like an old cinema card, I think. I don't know. But I don't use them anymore. So now they've become my painting cards, and you can probably see they're a bit mucky. And that's because you can reuse them because they're plastic. So you can use these over and over again. Most paints will wash out of these, no problem. And it doesn't matter if they don't. It doesn't matter if they're a mess. That's the joy of this. You can be as messy as you like. So this is the main thing that you need, is a lovely plastic card. There are other things you could use. You could use sponges. In fact, I've got some sponges, so maybe I'll show you. Little sponges are nice. I mean, you can create this with anything you like. I've seen people do it with old, I'm not going to do that today because it's very messy, but your like bathroom spray, if you have like a bathroom spray, your like Flash or whatever, the nozzle on the top with the spray, if you take that out of the bottle, you can add that to a pot of watery paint and spray on the paper like that. That's also an option. You can use anything you like. But these are my favourites, so I feel like these are going to be your best bet today. I have got myself loads of acrylic paint. Now, it doesn't have to be acrylic paint. I just use acrylic paint because it's what I use for other projects. And also, it doesn't have to be expensive acrylic paint. This is the cheapest acrylic paint I could find at the range. I think it was like a pack of 6 for like £4, which is pretty good. These guys, I think, were £2 each from the range, and I've just chosen some nice colours. If you're feeling really fancy, you could get some metallic paint. So I am going to use some metallic paint today because it makes it nice and iridescent and shiny. So that's what we're going to start with. Also, because it's me and I don't think I've done one session apart from calligraphy that doesn't involve glitter, I have got some glitter glue as well, because that's always good. I mean, why not? Why not? We might as well put glitter on it. So we're going to start with the paint. I'll show you a few techniques and the way that I do it, but really I just really want to encourage you to just have a go at painting stuff with these cards, because the effect is lovely. You can't go wrong. This is also something you can introduce to children if you wanted to use poster paints. It's quite good, messy fun. Yeah, there's no limits here. So I have covered this easel with these massive pieces of white paper. I believe these are like A2. Now, I'm not expecting you all to have A2 paper at home. It's quite big, it's quite hard to get hold of. But I'm going to do some A2 pieces. This is 2 A2 pieces. 1, 2. I'm going to cover this area just so that you can see it, really, so that you can see what I'm doing. But I've also got some A3 card, which I'll probably try and do some work on as well. The reason being is that if you use normal paper, what you will find is that it can go quite crinkly because it's quite thin. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. You could put that in a frame and it flatten it out. You could put it somewhere flat, but just be aware that if you're using thin paper, then it might get quite crinkly. It might dry a bit warped. Your card is less likely to kind of bend with the paint on it. Yes, they do. Yes, Dee, they do have A2 in the works. So they do have A2 paper in the works. I think this one I got from the range. This is like a kid's pad, like like a sketch pad. So you can get A2. It's just not something that I've not had A2 until I bought this one, to be fair. But yeah, you can use whatever size you want. This one is A4, so A4 works as well. But A3 is nicest if you're creating a piece of work. The other point to make is you might be, spoiler alert, you might be cutting it up anyway at the end. So the other thing that you might want to do is make your beautiful art and painting and use it to cut up into smaller pieces to use for like gift tags, cards, things like that. So bear in mind, if you're getting worried that you're not good enough or it's not right, is that by the end of it, you might be chopping it up anyway, just to make nice background pieces. There's really no stress, no worry here at all. It can't be wrong. Can't be wrong. It's great. So like I say, I'm going to start on these pieces of A1, A2, whatever they are, the big ones, just so you can see. And then I'll probably do a few bits on A3 as well, and I'll show you a few different techniques. But we're going to start with the paint. So the joy of this, again, we don't need paintbrushes. It's great. So I'm going to start with my little cards here. And I'm not even, this is how slapdash this is, but effective at the end. I've not even got a pot to put the paint in. I'm just going to pour the paint onto the paper because I don't really need to worry about it too much. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to have to see what happens here in terms of the light, because I like to start with a lighter colour like a yellow. This one's quite nice. It's like a sort of lilac-y colour, pastel blue it's called. So I'm going to start with this, but if the light isn't working quite well in here because it's quite shiny and bright, if you can't really see it on the camera, then I'll go in with another colour. But just for a reference point, I would recommend starting with a lighter colour, because you can use that lighter colour to get coverage over the white areas. You can leave some gaps to put other colours in, but you kind of just want to cover up the white as much as you can. So we'll start with this guy here, and I'm just going to pour some onto the paper. So I'll start up here. Or shall I start up here? I don't know if it's going to drip, you see. Okay, can you see that? Yeah, there's a tiny little blob there. I'd say there's a blob about that big, couple of centimetres blob. This will be easier if it's on the floor. That's why you don't need an easel. It will be easier to do if it's not, because it won't drip. But you can see me better doing it this way. So essentially, I've got my blob and I'm just going to spread it across the paper. Now, I don't know that you can see this very well, so I think I'm going to change colour. But I'm just using the card to spread it across the paper. Some of the time I'm doing it thick and some of the time I'm doing it thin. And if it leaves sort of a scraggly mark where it's not quite spread, that's fine. That's the joy of it. And essentially, I'm just going to try and cover the paper. So I'm going to move swiftly onto another colour so you can see much better. So I'll do a much darker colour. I think I'll do this lovely purple. This is a mauve. I like this one. So if I squidge some mauve on the top here, nice big blob there. And I'm going to start spreading it. And as you might have noticed, I'm not washing this. I'm not going to wash it in between colours. Doesn't matter. The colours are going to mix anyway. So I'm going to get my card. Oh, I'm sort of like right in the wrong corner there. Let me just pull this down so you can see it. That's better. So you can see it's kind of like plastering. And sometimes I let the paint go very thin and sometimes I keep it thick. So it's just the pressure that you put on the paper with your card. And you could leave it like that. So these bits are quite thick. So these bits will take quite a long time to dry. These bits won't so much because it's very thinly poured onto the paper. I might go in and scoop some more paint, and then I might make another mark over here. And I'm not worrying if it runs out because it's making lovely shapes and marks. These mottled marks here are really pretty. But you can probably see on this bit here where it looks like crinkly. That's because the paper's starting to crinkle up because it's very, very thin. So this is why you might want to bear in mind using card and paper slightly different. I'm going to use another colour now. What other colour should we go for? This is quite nice as well. I'm going to use this olive green. So I'm just making shapes. I'm not really thinking too much about it. I'm just sort of going with it, going with how I feel. You could just do straight lines. So I'm going over the other colour there, and you can probably see it's sort of like merging the two colours together. And you're getting this effect here where some of the colour underneath is showing through. This is beautiful. It's going to look really nice when it's all dry. And you can see as well here, well, you might not be able to see because it's quite small, but you've got some of the green, but I've got a leftover purple from the last purple that I used, and that's quite nice. and I'm just essentially covering the paper as much as I can and deciding to, you know, being really purposeful about my choices as to whether things are going to be really thick or really thin. I quite like to go in with a thick and then get thinner and see where it gets me. And if there are some bits that I think look too thick, I'll just go ahead and pull through with the card, maybe in another direction so it goes somewhere else. And at this point, I might go in with the purple, even though I've got green paint on here, and see what happens there. That mixes quite nicely. Oh yeah, it's lovely. This paper is very, very thin, so you might struggle. You don't want to like accidentally rip it. So just bear that in mind. But like I say, I'm going to do some with card in a minute. This is looking great. Okay, so now I'm going to choose another colour. So I think I might go in with like a yellow. Hopefully you'll be able to see that. I'm going to put it in this corner here. Nice big splodge. I'm going to go in quick because it's starting to drip. This is why you don't want an easel. So yellow is always nice because it will always be quite light. And you can use it really well as an underneath colour because other things will show on top of it and vice versa. So you can do it to go over colours. So can you see I've gone over this yellow bit here, but these green splodges are still showing through, which looks really nice. So yellow is a really good kind of coverage one. Coverage and kind of covers up anything you want it to. The key really is to cover up the white as much as possible with as much kind of differing marks as you can find, I guess. So I just want to cover up this corner as well. So I'm going to use a bit more of the yellow. It's looking good. And now I'm just finding the bits of white that are left. I'm going to go up to the edges as much as I can. The only reason I'm not going to go over the edges is because I don't want to make a mess. But if you've got something underneath, then go for it. Go all the way to the edge. Okay, looking good. I think I'm going to do one more colour. I'm going to leave the metallic for now. I'm going to do that on an A3 to show you. Maybe I'll do a little bit of red. I'm going to go there because I've got quite a lot of white marks down this edge here. Again, I'm not washing the card. I'm just going straight in. Oh, that red's nice. And at this point, can you see like I've just done a series of straight lines with the card, and that gives it a certain pattern, which I might keep. So I might leave the red from that side because these stripes are quite nice. And then I might just go in over this side and the bits that are still showing. Nice. And then I think I might just do one last swoosh over these bits, try and get that covered so there's not any white there. And that's kind of, essentially, that's your background done. So what I might do is, I'm just going to see, I lean that forward, just going to see if I can get a bit of the shine off it so you can see it a bit better. Let's try lowering my, I've forgotten the name for a blind. It's called a blind, isn't it? There you go. Lower my blind slightly. There you go. It's a little bit darker in here now, so you can, there's not so much shine on the paint. So this in itself, I mean, I have just scraped a load of paint over the paper, but in the context of what we're using it for, it's beautiful. There's so many different textures. There's loads of different shapes and colours, and they all look really nice together. And you could very easily kind of use that for something. If you wanted to wait for that to dry and then cut it up to make backgrounds for cards or tags, that's it, done, finished, show over. But there's more to it. We can add more and more things to it. So with that in mind, I think I'm going to do an A3 card for you and add a few other extra bits on it, and also show you the process in which I might use pens and crayons to draw over the top. So just need to decide if I should just go ahead and stick this A3 card straight over the top of this paper or not. It will stick to it if it does, but I'm not sure. I'm not worried about it. I think what I might do is get just a piece of paper. I'm going to get a piece of A3 paper and just sort of stick it over the top, just so that I'm not struggling to get this bit of card off. So the reason I want to be able to move this card easily is so that I can bring it close to you, so I can show you it a bit closer up. So I'm going to do the same thing again. This time I might use some different colours, and maybe I'm going to start with the yellow and try and get as much coverage as I can. So we're going to start the process again. Nothing different, it's just a smaller piece of card, so it won't take as long. I might do some wiggly lines. And at this point, I would just like to show you something. So I'm going to get darker colour. I'm going to go with this purple again. So squidge of purple. Swishy, swishy, swish. We're getting some of the yellow showing through where it was still on the card. Looking lovely. Ah, very nice. If you get those really thick bits, they're like really lumpy, that's fine. You can leave them if you want. Let's do a tiny bit of this lilac-y colour on the bottom here. And then I'm going to get a metallic paint and show you some different options with that as well. Looking good. Mixing the colours a bit. So hopefully you will have noticed I'm kind of just doing it without knowing what I'm doing, really. I'm just doing this naturally, but hopefully you guys, as you're watching, will have noticed I'm using different kind of arm strokes as I'm doing it. There is no kind of set rule to this at all. This is just how I'm feeling, really. So you might notice that I jab it, or you might notice I go down in nice lovely fluid motions. I might press harder, I might do flicks. So it's just trying different ways of moving your arm, really. It doesn't matter how you do it. I'm just letting you know so that you don't think that I've got some kind of magic order in which I place my hand on the paper. I really don't. It's really just, I'm just experimenting, really. It's really good fun. And hopefully if you have a go, you'll also just enjoy how simple it is and how freeing it is to know that you're creating something and not having to feel like you have to be some kind of maestro at painting. Because I know I'm not. I used to hate it at school when they used to make us paint still life, and I was really bad at it. But that felt like that was the default being a good artist, is if you could paint an orange really well. And what I've learned through working as an artist is that just simply isn't true. Everyone can do it. So I'm going to bring this a bit closer so you can see. You'll be able to see all these lovely marks. It's still quite bright in here, isn't it? Let's try my blind a bit further. I'm always having this problem in this room because depending on how much the sun's out, depends on how much you guys can see. Okay, so, and again, doesn't matter which way around it is. We've got some lovely marks here. Very nice. So I'm just going to show you a couple of things very quickly. Put it back there, starting to get paint on my fingers, which means I'm doing a good job. So the first thing I want to show you is the metallic. So this metallic, you can do this with any of the paints. It doesn't have to be the metallic paint. I think it will probably show up better with metallic. So I'm going to do a quick splodge on here. And when I swoop it over with my card, I'm going to try and make sure that it's really thick. So I'm not going to pull too hard with the card. I want this to be really thick and shiny and gloopy. It needs to look like it's going to take ages to dry, and you'll see why in a minute. So I'm going to do a big swoosh like this. Well, that wasn't a very big swoosh. I'm trying to make it as thick as possible. And you'll be able to tell because you'll be able to see how much paper you can see through it. Oh, there's quite a bit of paint left on there. Look, this is the other thing as well, is you could just go on how much paint is on your card. Okay, there's quite a bit of paint on there, so I might just do one more smudge. There you go, I've done a sort of rainbow effect there. That's looking good. And so the bit that I've just done here on the edge, which is your really wet bit, you can create patterns with the wet paint. So what I've got here is like a pencil that's not very well sharpened, and I can use that to make marks. So if I get this, so it's not going to make a pencil mark because it's just like a rubbish pencil. And I might just do shapes in the paint like that. I'll do some on this purple as well. Swooshy, 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 swoosh. And then hopefully you can see that already, but I'll bring it closer just to show you. So can you see there that I've drawn into the paint? And then you've got some marks. And the reason this works so well is because you have created layers with the paint. So you're not just getting white underneath that, it's all the colours underneath it, like the yellows and the light blue. So you could go over with your card with a lighter colour and then do some thick bits with a thicker paint, and then just go for your life with a blunt pencil to make some marks. And that's just going to add to the texture, and that will dry beautifully like that. Lovely. The other thing I wanted to show you very quickly is the sponge. So this will create a different type of pattern, so it'll be quite mottled. So I might show you that with, in fact, what I will do is I'll show you that with another piece of card so that you can see the full effect of it. But I will go back to that purple and bronze one because I really like it. See how much this paper stuck to my A2. Have I completely ruined this one? Well, maybe not. Maybe having bits that have come off it make it look better. Not too bad. Not too bad. Slightly rippy, but we can work with it. Okay, so I'm going to start with this new A3. We haven't done a blue yet, so maybe I'll stick a blue on there. Again, same thing, just pour some on. And with a sponge, you're kind of dabbing. Now, the only problem I have with the sponge is that it's not as quick as the card. The card is the quickest thing in the world. You just like swoosh, 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 made a piece of art. So the sponge, you can still swoosh with it, but it leaves a different mark and it doesn't get as much coverage. But what it is nice for is texture, because you get this lovely mottled effect. So I might do that on the top of my other piece that I've just showed you, but just so you can see what it looks like on white card. Oh, hey up, I've lost a bit of paper here. So this lovely effect here is quite nice with the sponge. This mottled effect kind of looks like coral or like something in the sea. But like I say, you might find that looks better if it's on top of another colour. So for example, if we get our card out again and maybe get this purple, say, do a splodge of purple. I love the purple, it's so nice. Get my card out again, do a load of swooshing on that. Showing through that blue nicely, that's looking good. And then we might get another colour. Let's do like some red. Maybe do some red. Have we done red? Do red on there. Oh, that's dripping. Quick as we can. Swoosh. And also you can choose your colours depending on what you plan on doing with it. So for the example pieces I showed you at the beginning, I tried to make sure the backgrounds were quite light and bright. So because I knew that I was going to sort of put black writing on top. But if you're not going to put writing on top that needs to be sort of legible, then you can use really dark, deep colours because there's nothing. Or you might want to do very dark colours, knowing that you're going to put white writing on top or a white picture on top. Totally up to you. So that's looking nice. So what I'll do very quickly is just get that sponge out again and see if we can get a mottled effect on these bits here, so I can show you what it looks like with the background. I wonder what will happen if we do it with this yellow. I'm going to get another sponge. I've got plenty at hand, so I'm just going to pour some on the sponge and see what happens. See if it shows up. Oh yeah, that shows up quite nicely. That's quite a nice effect actually. Pour a bit more on. So a lighter colour with the sponge on top of the darker background works quite nicely. A little bit more. You can just do whatever you want really. So yeah, that works quite nicely. So can you see that kind of mottled effect on there is really nice. And what you could also do, if you wanted, is you could then swoosh some of that and see what happens if we swoosh parts of it. So you're kind of almost rubbing some of it away, just leaving little bits of it. That's quite nice. Very nice. Okay, so there so we've got your main thing is your colours splodged on the page, get your card out, swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Simple. Then we've got the thicker paint that you can draw in with a blunt pencil and leave some marks, which will have background colour behind it. And you've also got your sponge, which you can use for your mottled effect. The last thing that I'm going to show you paint-wise is the glitter glue, because the glitter glue I would just go in the same way I would with the paint. And it's just to add a bit, again, it's texture, isn't it? It's when it will catch the light. If you're not doing a layer of glitter all over it, you're just doing bits of glitter. So it's kind of got that collage effect, the same as the paint. It's kind of bits and bobs. It's going to catch the eye because there's so much going on, lots of different things happening. So I think I'm going to put some glitter glue on this one because I'm really a big fan of this one. Quite pleased with it. So again, got some glitter glue. Now it doesn't matter what glitter glue you can use. You can use the cheapest stuff you can find. In fact, I've got some here which I haven't opened yet, but these guys are really nice. So I've got a bright green, a bright pink, and then like an iridescent silver. They were all from the range, and I think they were £1 each. Don't think they were more than £1. So they're really good. You don't need to use lots and lots. If you've seen any of my sessions before, you will know that I love glitter. You can throw actual glitter at it if you want. I won't do that today because people will think I've got a problem. But yeah, throw glitter at it if you like. We could also collage it as well, so you could also rip up bits of paper and stick them on. I'm going to show you a technique with some tape, which is quite nice, but that will come soon. But for now, I'll do the glitter. So let's think, which bit do I want it on? I think I'm going to turn this around this way and put it in this area here where it's a bit lighter. So hopefully it will show up a bit more. Now, this might be a bit more liquidy, so it might drip everywhere. But if it doesn't actually matter. Okay, so I've got a drip of the glittery glue. I'm going to use this this non-dirty card. And now this probably won't show up very well until I move it closer because it is just glitter. So it's not like super strong in colour, but it really catches the eye. Oh, it's lovely, really lovely. I'm going to pour a bit on the card this time. Just go in on this corner. And again, like I say, we're not just splattering this all over. We're still making choices about where everything goes. It's just that those choices don't really have any bad consequences. So you're going to be able to see the glittery effect. If you can't see the glittery effect, then I would say to you that means that you have to go away and do this so that you can see it for yourself because it's so beautiful. I'm just seeing if there's any way I can kind of catch the light. Doesn't show up very well, but I have put some glitter on this top bit and this bottom bit. If I go really close. Oh, here you go. There we go. You can see the glitter there, right? In that corner, you see the little dots. It does, and when it's dry, it's going to look fantastic. So yeah, I think we're in agreement that we have to use glitter. But again, really, really simple. We are just using the card again and swooshing it. Now this glitter glue, most glitter glue is kind of got like a colour to it. So this is supposed to be red. It's obviously not very strong because it's not a paint. It's got a very low pigment. It's almost translucent. And again, I can't really show you here because the light's not good enough. But I've done quite a thick swoosh here. And you might be able to see around here that it looks ever so slightly redder. That is the glitter glue. So if you go in quite thickly with the card, you will see that colour slightly, which is really nice. And then the other bits where I've done it a bit thinner, it's just glitter. So apply the glitter glue in the same way that you would the paint. Use thick strokes and thin strokes. It looks lovely. Woo, we're doing so well. Okay, so I feel like we've done the background now. We've done the main part. So we've used our paints. I don't think we need to use any more paint. You get the idea. You just need to get an old card and some paints, and that's it. But there's more that we can do to it. So I move my paints out of the way. And there's a few different ways you can do this. That big loud crash was the sound of crayons hitting the table. So crayons are really good because they're super cheap. You can buy kids' crayons from a pound shop for like 50p. And because they're waxy, they add an extra element of texture to it because like a wax finish is different to a paint finish. Kind of doesn't ruin anything. The problem with like felt tip pens is if you start drawing on the wet paint, is it can ruin the nibs and the ink. Whereas crayons are kind of quite hardy, you can kind of ruin them. There's no real consequence to our actions here. So that's why I think crayons are quite nice. The only issue you have is they don't show up quite as much as some other options, but we're going to have a go anyway. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to start with a red crayon and just see. Now, I'm not going to do anything fancy. I'm not going to draw any pictures. I'm just going to make marks. I think the really enjoyable thing about this, and as I said before about introducing kids to this sort of thing, if you get a kid to do this, they're not going to think about it. They're just going to go for it. And that's because they don't have any of that kind of worry from society about how good or bad it is. They're just experimenting. And that's what's quite freeing about this process if you're an adult, is that you can effectively do the same thing as the child. You're just making marks. You don't have to do anything fancy, and the end result will still be gorgeous. So the reason we're using the wax, like I said, is we're just creating a bit of texture. We're adding an extra element. I am not doing anything fancy. And in fact, at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this onto my sketch pad so I can get a bit closer so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to move closer to the camera and also move my coffee out of the way. Because I draw the line at throwing coffee at the paint, okay? Although it would stain quite nicely. So again, we're not doing anything fancy at all. We're just making marks, although I can't do it because it's not sticking to this. I'm scribbling is what I'm doing. I'm scribbling on the paper with a crayon. On the bits that are wet, again, you're making marks that will kind of show through. And you can choose where to scribble. You might just choose to scribble on the bits that are still white on the edges. I'm going to get a black now. Let's try a black. See if there's a way I can do it so you can see. Let's hold it there and do it on this corner. Ah, yes, the black shows up more now. So you could do a series of circles. You could do a series of lines. You could just do actual scribbles. Doesn't really matter. You're just adding texture to it. So go for your life with some crayons because whatever you do will look good. But if you have access to chalk pens, then they are even better. So I'm going to show you those now. Oh, I've made a right mess. Look at my fingers. So again, if you have seen any of my past sessions, you'll know that I use these guys quite a lot. So these are Posca pens. These are chalk pens. So these I think were invented for like graffiti artists, so for like street art. They're really, really hardy. They're kind of a water-based pigment. They're really lovely, chunky marker pens that will take a lot of, they'll take a lot, basically. And I like to use these to make some extra marks on the paper. If you don't have access to these, like I say, crayons are really good, oil pastels, chalk pastels, the sorts of things that kids use because they don't get completely ruined. You're welcome to use felt tip pens if you want, but what I would recommend is wait until your picture is completely dry before you do so. The reason that I don't want to do that is because I want to be doing it all in the moment and have a finished project very, very quickly because I have absolutely no patience. So if you're the sort of person like me that has no patience, then don't wait for your pictures to dry. Just go for it. Go mad. Use your wax crayons. But like I say, if you you want and you have actually chalk pens, then these guys are great. So the sort of thing we're going to do with this is, let me find my example pieces. So for this guy here, can you see these lovely green circles that I've done? And these kind of mad zigzags and stuff. They've all been done with Posca pens. And the joy of that is that you can do it while it's still wet. You can make a mess. They'll be fine. They're going to be all right. The other thing that I've got is these very, very thick chalk pens. Now, these are even harder to get hold of. So I totally appreciate that not many of you are going to have these. But if it's something that you're interested in and you are, you want to invest a lot of time into, and it's the sort of thing you really want to get on board with, or something you might want to explore a bit more, then these are fantastic. They are by a brand called Zig, which is Z-I-G, and you will find those on kind of like spray painting websites, the sort of places that street artists go to buy their products. But if you type in Zig pens into the internet, you'll find the brand. They do these very, very thick pens. So I've got a blue and a pink and a purple. I'm going to get the blue one out because, am I going to get the blue one out? No, I think I'm going to get the pink one out. I don't have any pink on my paper. I'm going with the colours I don't have. Let me just open this up so you can see. So this is a chalk pen, same as a Posca pen, but it's much, much thicker, super thick. It's almost like a roller for paint. So these make really lovely thick marks like this one here. I'll show you. So this blue line across the top, and then also these purple lines here that are kind of scraggly. So they're really nice for big marks. Like I say, you don't need them. We've just made some beautiful marks here with just paint. But like I say, if it's something you're interested in, these guys are great. So I'm going to go ahead and just make some, and I just really at this point, it's just watching sort of how mad you can go. It doesn't matter how you do it. You're just winging it really. I mean, this is just dripped all over the page because it's obviously had a bit of a beating before, but it looks great. If things drip, wonderful, keep the drips in. But you can make whatever marks you like. I want to try some colours that I've not got. So I haven't got any green in there. So I might use a Posca green here. And I might do some circles as it moves across the computer screen. And I'm not worrying too much about the quality of it. If these guys start to run out, you need to give them a shake and a dab. And then they'll come back to life, hopefully. I might do some stripes. Doesn't really matter. Let's maybe get a dark blue. Quite like to do some big shapes. Like a nice big circle there. A nice big circle here. And then maybe just one in the corner and one here. It's just gone through the blue, the pink there, but it looks really nice. I might finish on this guy. This is another Zig pen. I think basically what I'm trying to say with the pens is that if you are a stationery addict, I'm really sorry that I've now introduced you to a whole plethora of stationery that you can get your hands on, which is street art pens, because they are wonderful and they're good for so many different things. This purple's really nice. Just again, making a mess. So what I might do at this point is I might get my other piece because this might be a bit drier now. So this is my darker one. Might see what happens if I get maybe the lighter blue out. I'll bring it closer so you can see them in a minute. But because that's dripped as well, we've got a drippy blue. Even when they run out, it looks quite nice because they're doing something interesting, making some textures. This is now dripping everywhere. That's okay. We'll embrace the drip of the pen. I'll just stripe. So I think really I just end up doing stripes and circles. And I'm just covering bits that I think maybe need a bit of extra something. Oh, try and get the lid on that one. Maybe what have we not done? Yellow. There's no yellow, so let's try that. Just trying to find the best way of getting the colour out. There we go. So again, circles are really nice, or just a series of wiggly lines. going in random directions. Always good. Try not to completely break the easel. Lovely jubbly. You might do like big dots. You might literally just do dots all over the page, or you might do them in a line so they're quite uniform, but just in certain areas. Really is totally up to you. We're just having a go. At this point, I'm just trying to make my pens work. So I think they're looking pretty good. I'm just wondering if this one might need just a bit of something, but hopefully you can see the kind of effects that you're getting. And this one here, I think this is my favourite one. It's fair, it's got loads going on, it's just gorgeous. And I'm going to try and do it really close to the camera so you can see. So what's really beautiful about this technique is you do this, you make an absolute mess, you look at it and you go, wow, it's gorgeous, I love it, and you might turn it into something. So you might put a quote over the top of it, which I'll show you in a second. Or you might look at it and go, it's a bit of a mess, actually. I don't know if I like it very much. But what I would recommend to all of you, and I did this purely for the sake of me selling my work, because that's what I do, is that I made these guys. I did these bits, and then I took loads of pictures of them before I put the quotes on top. And I took photos of them from really far away, and I took loads and loads of close-ups. And when I was going through my phone and looking back at them, and I looked at the close-ups, I was like, oh my God, they're really beautiful. The close-ups are gorgeous. And so if you're not happy with your piece, what I would recommend you do is take a load of photos on your phone, loads of close-ups of all the different sections, and you will find points. Because you've made it, you've just gone for it, and you're kind of not aware of all the intricacies of it because you've done it yourself, right? So when you start to look closely at it, you'll see all the lovely marks that you've made without even noticing, and you'll realise just how beautiful it is. So, for example, if we look at this piece here and look at it as a whole, right? And it's, you know, it's got a lot going on. But if we start to zoom in and really look at it, and we'll find so many beautiful, so I'm going to try and find some really nice bits for you. So I really like this bit here. Where is it? Trying to show you. This bit here, where the pen, the blue pen, has gone through a drippy bit of pink. I like that bit there. I like this bit here, where we've got some of the bronze. There we go, the bronze bit. But I can see purple underneath it. I can see glitter. I can see a pink mark here going into a purple dot. I mean, it's, the possibilities are endless. And what you'll find is you'll be completely mesmerized by what you've created in a matter of minutes, just by swooshing a load of paint on a piece of paper. So at that point, you might go, well, do you know what? There's so many beautiful elements to this. I could cut this up and use it for something else. So on an A3 piece, for example, you could put this into maybe what? Let's say maybe 9 squares. So you could cut it into 9 equal pieces, use them as tags for birthday presents. You could write the person's name on the front of it. You could cut the pieces up and then rearrange them, stick them onto another piece of A3, and you will have created an even more wacky piece of abstract art just by cutting it up and mixing it round. So the possibilities are endless. Yeah, really happy with those. So what I'm going to show you now very, very quickly, because I'm aware of time. Where is my example? I've lost everything in this room. Okay. Here it is. Okay. At this point, I will point out, I've just been reminded by my quote, is that I often put spray paint on mine as well. So if I show you this here, the reason I've not done it today is because I'm not doing spray paint indoors. It's too windy outside. So you might be able to tell on this one. Can you tell? Quite hard to see. I've got some neon spray paint on here. What I've done is I've just done some little sprays, so you just get some flicks. That I find is very, very effective, and it looks really lovely. I don't know if my camera's picking it up very well, but there are some little dots, sort of neon dots splattered around on the bottom there. And that looks really, really nice. I would always recommend with spray paint, it's one of those things like it can be quite dangerous to use. So don't use it if you don't feel comfortable. It's why I'm not doing it today. I don't want to encourage you all to use spray paint if you don't want to. But I use spray paint all the time, so I'm used to getting very messy fingers and the horrible smell. But yeah, spray paint works really, really nicely just to do a few zhuzhes on there to get a few splatters. Alternatively, if you want to get a splatter effect on, you could use some paint and a paintbrush. I'm not going to show you, again, too messy in this room, but you just want to get yourself a thick paintbrush, make sure it's nice and wet, and literally get some watered down paint in your paintbrush and just splat it. So you're literally using your finger to go like this, but with paint on it. And when you do that, it will splatter paint at the page. So you probably want to be quite close to the paper and you just go for your life. Splat, 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 splat. So that's how you get a splatter effect, or use spray paint if you feel comfortable using spray paint. I also use spray paint to do my quotes, but you don't have to. I will show you very quickly how you could do it without. I just need to get my black paint. So this guy here. So I have just found a funny quote. So this says, the only person you can rely on is you. What a nightmare. That's how I feel most days. The easiest way to do this is if you have access to a computer with Word or any kind of like document making thing, is write your quote out with, I mean, you're probably limited to A4, but if you were clever about it, you could do a quote on 2 A4s to make an A3. If that makes sense. I have an A3 printer because I'm not very good at technical stuff, so that's why this is a bit easier for me. But essentially, the reason I'm telling you about this is you don't have to write it out yourself. I have not written this. I've printed it out on my printer and cut it out. And the joy of this is you can then use it over and over again. So you just want to make sure that your quote is the same size as the piece of paper you're working on. A4 is the easiest, but A3 if you want to put 2 A4s together. I have used a craft knife to cut it out, and I've got one here. So the easiest way of doing it, the cheapest way of doing it, is getting one of these disposable, that's the word I'm looking for. A disposable Stanley knife is what they're called. And they're very, very similar to craft knives, and they last ages. They're not disposable at all if you're using them for cutting paper. I appreciate they're disposable if you're in construction or carpentry or whatever, but I've got these and I've kept them forever. They stay quite sharp if you're just cutting paper. Obviously, there are risks using knives, so please be very, very careful. If you feel comfortable using these, always put something underneath your paper. Don't just go for it on a table because you'll ruin your table. And please be careful. I don't want you chopping your fingers off. But yes, this is how I've done it. I have printed the quote out in black on my paper, and then used one of these Stanley knives to very carefully cut out the letters. The only thing you need to be aware of is letters that have circles in them, like O's and R's and P's, all those ones. You have to remember to do a little line. You see that little line there, so that it stays joined. If you don't do that little join, then you will not have the middle of your O anymore. So, or you could leave it like that, which also looks quite nice. So just bear that in mind. It's basically a simple stencil. If you don't feel confident doing this, you don't have to do this at all. You could use a normal stencil. You know, you can get those plastic ones that have the alphabet on. You could use one of those, but try it with paint so that you get a nice strong colour, nice strong finish. But that's how I've done this. So I just wanted to let you know. And it is really easy if you feel confident with the little craft knives, because I know they're a bit fiddly. But in terms of the construction of it, I've just printed it off on a piece of paper. So what I would then do is I would put this on top of my piece of work. And usually how I do this is I go outside and I stick a load of rocks on the bits that haven't got letters, and then I just spray paint it. That's the quickest way of doing it. But again, I appreciate spray paint is quite scary, and it's not as readily available as just having some black paint. So I'll show you very quickly how I would do it with paint. I'm going to get some black paint. I would probably, if I was being really careful, I would probably stick this down onto the piece of card. So I might get some, maybe some like brown kind of paper tape to stick it down. But I'm not going to be careful because I just want to show you how to do it, and then you guys will know. The easiest way to do this is get a stippled brush. So you want a brush that is quite thick at the top, a dobby brush, if you will, something you can daub with. If it's got a pointed end, you're going to struggle to get a nice sharp finish. So these guys were just really cheap kids craft paintbrushes from, I think, also the Range, or probably just a supermarket. They're really cheap. I think I got a pack of 4 for £1. So you just want something that's got a nice, God, it's so glary in here, isn't it? Whew. Nice thick dobby end. So that's the sort of brush you want, so you can get a stippled effect. And again, if you were doing it on, say, this one, I might recommend doing white paint because it might stand out more, because this is quite dark colours. But this guy's quite bright, so I think a black would be fine. So I'm just going to show you like the first word, just so you can see how I do it. And I realise at this point my mistake in not having a pot for my paint, because now I've got nowhere to put my black paint. I'm going to put it on the card. I don't need much. Here you go. Look, I've made myself a mini paint palette by putting some paint on a card. So I will get some of my paint and just daub it on your area before you do it on the paper, so you've not got loads and loads of paint. And then I just want to make sure, like I say, if you tape it down first, that would be better, but just make sure you're holding it down because you don't want it to splurge out the edges. So this one, for example, I'm going to hold down the T as much as I can whilst also showing you what I'm doing, and I want to go directly on top of it. I've not got enough paint there. Let's get a bit more. So this will obviously take longer, I'm going to stand up, than spray paint. You've really got to take your time and not let go of that stencil. You don't want it to splurge over the edges, especially if it's lettering. But you know, you don't have to do lettering, you don't have to do a quote, you could just do a picture on top. Could just be the background for something. Now, I'm aware that this probably isn't the neatest that I've done, but as long as you can see the technique, and let's see what happens when we put it away. That's not too bad. It has definitely splurged over the side slightly, but for my first go, it's not bad at all. So let's just put that down there. And put that there. Oh, okay. So it's gone a little bit splurgy on the edges, so you have to be really careful with where you're stippling. But you get the idea. You get what you need to do. Jab, jab, jab with your paintbrush. But yeah, like I say, you don't have to do a quote on top. You could do pictures. So stamping as well, like if you had any like wood block stamps with the kids, you could do your potato printing. What a fabulous way of adding a bit of potato print. You could have your lovely background and then use your potato stamps on top of it. Lovely. Or don't do any writing at all, don't do any patterns at all, because this on its own is enough. I mean, look at these colours. Look at those purples and blues and reds and how they mix into each other. And I know that I've been talking for an hour, but in fact what I might do is I might comment on this afterwards. If you guys want to check this out afterwards, I will comment on this video on my Facebook of a video that I posted a while back of me doing this, and it's what's it called, time lapse. So it's a time lapse video of me doing it, and it really took me like less than an hour to make maybe 9 pieces. So it's a really quick It's a really quick one. I know I've been talking for a long time, but it's a really quick craft that anybody can do. And I mean, stunning, right? Beautiful. So I really hope you all have a go. I'd really love to see any outcomes if any of you do have a go. Please let me know if you have any questions. I think I've covered everything. Throw some paint at a piece of paper and use an old credit card to swish it around, right? That's it. That's it. And it still looks gorgeous. Yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. Please all have a go. It's so fun. It's really refreshing to do because you don't have to, it's quite mindful actually. You don't have to think about too much. And I will post my time-lapse video on this video for you. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. I'm going to go and wash my hands. And I'll see you all very, very soon. Thank you very much. I've been Rosie, and have a great day. Bye.